Hello and welcome back to the second part of the chapter named Distribution of Major Industries. In this part, we'll be exploring about the different industries that are set up all over the world, starting from India, going to USA, and finally in Japan. And we'll be also learning about the various reasons of why the distribution of these industries are located in this part of the country or this part of the world. Okay, so with that, let's get started. The first industry that we will be talking about is the iron and steel industry. Steel industry is also known as the backbone of various other industries as well. That is because, and this I had also told you in one of the earlier slides when we had begun the chapter, that the iron and steel that we are getting from different mineral ores involved in mineral industries, these final products are actually being used as raw material in various other industries. Okay, so for example, in automobiles, for example, in other vehicles like trains, like ships. Okay, then what? Then in even in oil drilling machines, all those machineries, right? So machineries, the pencil nib that you're using, right? So the product that we are getting, especially steel is more a versatile product than iron. Okay, because there are steel pipelines as well, right? Steel is being used in a number of industries. Okay, so that is why the iron and steel industry is known as a feeder industry, because the final product of this industry is actually being used as a raw material in other industries, in automobiles, trains, ships, cars, vehicles, different machineries, right? In it is also being used to manufacture the safety pins, such small articles, right? Safety pins. Then also the pencil limb that I told you about, right? So this forms the basis for growth of many other industries, and this is because the versatility of steel, right? Because steel is it has such a myriad usage. It can be, and that is because it can be molded into different shapes. It can be drawn into wires. It can be drawn into, or you can say beat it into thin sheets. All right, so all of these activities are involved in the iron and steel industries. Okay, the other kind of usage of steel is also seen in alloys. Okay, steel is itself an alloy, like you can see here in this picture. Coal, the input that is required for the production of steel is coal, iron ore, limestone, and all of these go through certain processes. Okay, and then the output that you're getting is steel. But then again, as I told you, steel is used as a raw material in other industries. So steel is mixed with other metals to form certain alloys, in which you can see the thickness, the tensile strength of steel is furthermore reinforced. Okay, so raw material is put into a blast furnace for melting. Then it goes through certain other processes where value is added at each step. Okay, so whatever processes a particular input product goes through, its value is getting increased. By value I mean usage value. Okay, so a raw material like coal, like iron ore, in itself it does not have so much use, right? They do not have so much uses, right? But when they are going through certain secondary activities, value is being added at each particular processing step, so that the final product, the output that you're getting, its usage value is very, very high, its demand is very, very high in the market. Okay, so it goes through smelting, then it also goes through certain refining processes, and finally the output that you're getting is used as raw material in various other industries, and is also used as a final product where it's being directly sold into the market as well, and then those market people could also be further supplying it to various industries. Okay, yes, you can see here in this video the process of smelting. The process of smelting is nothing but melting of the iron ore. So iron ore is the raw material from which we are deriving iron, steel, and other products, right? So that particular mineral is being subjected to a very high amount of heat, high amount of temperature. It is melted in blast furnace, and it is also melted beyond the boiling point of certain other you can say metal, so that the metal who has a higher or lower boiling point is getting differentiated accordingly, is getting extracted accordingly. So this is the process of smelting. Then the location of iron and steel industry, it also varies. Okay, in India, the you can say the accumulation of iron and steel industry, or accumulation of location, okay, is more towards West Bengal, towards Jharkhand, and other areas in this particular, you can say, eastern direction towards Orissa, and also it's also there, in Chhattisgarh, and it is also there in some areas of the south. For example, in Visakhapatnam and Andhra Pradesh, okay, and Salem in Tamil Nadu. It is also there in certain areas of Karnataka, right? So in India, to this date, these especially are the areas where iron and steel industries, they are located in you can say in much higher numbers. Okay, then in this picture you can see some markings are there, the best location, the best location, the best location according to the timeline, right? So the best location before 1800, it involved all those areas where a direct availability of raw material was there, a direct transport system, labor and everything was there. Okay, so all of these, you can say, factors were there surrounding the industrial setup very closely. Okay, then as technology started advancing from 1800 to 1950, when coal started becoming one of the, you can say, required product to manufacture different industries, not manufacture different industries, manufacturing different products in different industries. Okay, the steel that you're getting is actually also, to produce that steel you need coal, right? So naturally the demand of coal also started getting much and much higher. So the best location from 1800 to 1850 got shifted, and it was still, in proximity to all those areas of raw material and water and everything. But coal mines was now very, very, you can say, it was kept in mind as a major dominant factor where these iron and steel industries could be set up. Then from 1950 onwards, when industrial setup was being you can say transformed, or rather formed between different continents, different countries, right? If you remember that slide from the earlier part of the chapter. So when that started developing, most of the iron and steel industries, they got shifted towards the port side, right? So that the import and export of certain products could be made possible. Import of raw materials, iron, steel, coal, okay, and export, if these are the products that you can say processing in your area, then if you're near to the port, then you can export them to other areas where a market value is very, very high. So these are the factors where there was a shift in the iron and steel industries in India. Like I told you, West Bengal, Jharkhand, Orissa, Chhattisgarh, in Jharkhand, Rourkela, sorry, not Rourkela, Bokaro, okay, all of these areas, if you have heard the names. Also towards the south, like I mentioned, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Visakhapatnam and Andhra Pradesh. So these were the areas that are many that have many iron and steel industry. So it has changed, the location has changed since 1800s, depending upon the proximity of resources, energy, and transport. Okay, then a very, you can say, important setup of industry is in Jamshedpur, that is located in Jharkhand. Earlier it was known as Sakchi, but later the name got changed to Jamshedpur. And one of the important industry that is there is TISCO. The full form of TISCO is Tata Iron and Steel Company. Was established in 1907 at Sakchi, Jamshedpur. Later the name was changed from Sakchi to Jamshedpur. And after independence, the government took up the initiative to set up more iron and steel plants. Okay, so earlier, why this particular area is being chosen? Because if you may remember, the factors that determine the setting up of a particular industry: availability of raw material, availability of labor, availability of capital, power costs, etc. So all these factors have to be kept in mind. Okay, so Jamshedpur is the most favorable area because of the surrounding rivers. It's in Jharkhand, so the surrounding availability of water sources, so that it can be used as an important, you can say, tool in the processing of iron and steel, etc. Okay, then also the climate also was very important. Humid climate also was actually adding to the favor in the processing of all these material. The Kolkata also was a large market, and the first industrial setup was actually in Kolkata. Okay, and later on it was, you can say, before Jamshedpur I'm talking about. So it was later on it was this industrial process was terminated due to certain reasons. Okay, because and when Jamshedpur emerged as a leading iron and steel industrial area, it also got favor from its neighboring states, right? So I told you that West Bengal, Jharkhand, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, all of these areas, there is a network, right, of iron and steel industries. Okay, so also the you can say the transferring of raw materials, the transferring of the finished product was also going on between these states. So Jamshedpur was getting its raw material from Odisha and Chhattisgarh as well. Okay, so this network also made Jamshedpur possible to be a leading emerging iron and steel setup in India. Okay. So another factors, other factors why Sakchi or Jamshedpur was chosen. So I already told you, right, that there was the sources of water supply. Okay, and also the important water supply sources is actually the confluence. The confluence is the meeting point. Okay, confluence of Subarna Rekha river. This is the name of a river, and Kharkai. Kharkai or Kharkai. So these two rivers, obviously they're located in Jharkhand. So the confluence of these rivers made it possible for Jamshedpur to be a leading industrial setup. Then also it's only somewhat 30 kilometers away from this railway line, Bengal-Nagpur line. So this, proximity, this closeness towards a railway line made it possible for an easier and efficient transport network system. Okay, so that is why Tisco emerged as a leading, you can say, industrial setup. And like I told you, before all of this, there was an industrial setup in Kolkata, but was terminated due to certain factories. I'm sorry, certain reasons. Okay. Also, Kolkata then became a very a source of an important market, so that the finished product could be sold into Kolkata. Okay. Then from India to USA, let's talk about USA, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh, it's located, it is in very proximity to what we call Great Lakes in the North America. These Great Lakes are actually five very important lakes that make it possible for the import or also export, but mainly import of iron ore from Minnesota to Pittsburgh. So these lakes are Superior, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and also Huron. Of this, Superior is the largest lake. Okay, so Pittsburgh gets its iron ore or raw material supply from Minnesota. Okay, and that is made possible, that supply is made possible from the import and export system via these famous Great Lakes: Superior, Ontario, Michigan, Erie, and Huron. Okay, so this waterway provides a cheap way to transport all of these materials towards Pittsburgh. So, and also on top of that, there is an access to railways and of course water supply I have mentioned. So this makes it possible. So it's getting its raw material, it's nearby, and it's also getting water supply, it is also getting capital, labor. So all of these are required for a successful installation of an industry, right? So Pittsburgh is getting all of these here. That is why it is in USA it emerged as an important industrial area, iron and steel industrial area. But now, if you will, look at the major industries of Pittsburgh, iron and steel may not be on the top, because there are other emerging industries, okay, and this is because all related to the availability of resources. So say in some area where you had to import raw materials, and due to technology advancement and with the passage of time, other important sectors were being other important sectors got installed, they got set up, okay. So naturally you'll be favoring those areas where you are already getting the raw materials locally, right? And so that is what was is happening in Pittsburgh. Iron and steel industry is there, okay, but there is also an availability, myriad availability of other industrial setups, okay. And yeah, talking about raw materials, one of the raw materials, yes, it is getting iron ore from Minnesota, but the coal that is involved in the manufacture of steel, coal is procured locally in Pittsburgh, okay. Then finally we are coming towards the cotton textile industry, okay. This is a very important industry after the iron and steel industry. And when we are talking about textile, of course this particular discussion is located to cotton, but remember that textile also involves other important fibers like silk, like jute, like wool, etc. And textile means all of these are getting weaved into fabrics, into cloths, right? So textile industry actually involves all of these industries, and depending upon what kind of machinery setups you are installing, okay, these textile industries are further divided depending upon the raw material that you are extracting the final product from, okay. So is it cotton, is it silk, is it jute, is it wool? So here our discussion is limited to cotton. The first successful mechanized textile mill was established in Mumbai in 1854. Now before Mumbai, the first place where a successful you can say a cotton textile industry was established was in Kolkata in 1818, okay, at a place known as Fort Goldstar, okay. But this was shut down because after Kolkata, during that time, during 1818, okay, hand looms were being used, okay. So what was happening here is that till the 1800s, whatever procedures were required in the processing part of the input products were basically handmade tools, handmade hand looms. You must have heard of hand looms, spinning, weaving, and all those activities. And after, as the shift got closer and closer towards the middle of the 19th century, and then towards the 19th century itself, then you started getting power driven hand looms. So this was what was established in Mumbai. Mechanized textile mill was established where power hand looms were being installed, and because of that, also the climate condition. So cotton requires a wet humid climate to so that the differentiation, or rather the extrication of different fibers could be made possible, and then fibers could be then spinned into the particular yarn, and then yarn could be made to could be processed to make fabrics, right? So a humid climate was required. So Kolkata and Mumbai, they have the perfect humid climate. So due to certain reasons, this Fort Goldstar got closed, and when a mechanized system was set up in Mumbai, it was, it flourished thoroughly. So 1854, Mumbai is the leading, industrial. Mumbai is the leading industrial setup in India, where you have the cotton textile industry, and this humid climate, then owing to the cheap availability of labor, and also there is capital, also there is a transport system, because Mumbai is located towards a seaport, right? So an import and export of material is made very easy, right? After Mumbai, naturally other centers also opened, such as in Coimbatore, Kanpur, Chennai, Ahmedabad, Puducherry. So all of these areas got opened naturally, but Mumbai is the first industrial setup that is very successful till date, okay. And and of course the Kolkata one, it got shut down. The humid climate and other factors, it make possible for Mumbai to be a leading producer of cotton textile. All right, in this video you will be seeing that how cotton is being manufactured, right? So cotton plants, they are being plucked plugged out according to, depending upon the right texture of cotton balls, where it needs to be plugged. You know that 200 and something frost free days are required for the plucking of cotton balls. This I discussed with you in the previous chapter. And also it needs plenty of sunshine, right? So that is when the cotton balls are being plugged up, then they are processed into the industries where it goes through the secondary activity, right? Where it goes through different spinning, weaving, processing into yarn. Yarn is getting processed into fabric. So all of this is happening. All right, and finally the final output that you're getting is the cotton clothes that you are wearing. Okay, then a fun activity here: collect different types of pieces of cloth from a tailor's shop and classify them under cotton, silk, synthetic, woolen. Find out the raw materials used in their manufacturing. Now remember, when I told you about the textile industry, I wrote about that silk, cotton, wool. Okay, all of these are also involved in the textile industry. So these these raw materials are naturally occurring raw materials. Okay, we are not processing them in laboratories, but now there is something known as artificial fabric also. So synthetic fabrics like acrylic, okay, like nylon, like polyester. So all of these are getting manufactured in laboratories. Okay, some are completely, you can say, synthetic or man-made, or some are an amalgamation of some man-made fibers and some naturally occurring fibers. All right, so when you perform this activity, you'll be getting an idea that what a particular product feels like. If it is cotton, what cotton feels like, what silk feels like. And if it is artificially manufactured fibers like acrylic, nylon, polyester, then what is actually the fabric made up of? So if you do this activity, you will be, closing. You will be very, very close to assessing the kind of fabric a piece of cloth is made up of. Finally, we are coming towards Ahmedabad, and Ahmedabad is also known as the Manchester of India, because then when the mill got established in Ahmedabad in 1859 after Mumbai, it became one of the leading producer of textiles. So it is the second largest textile city of India after Mumbai. And again, the factors are also very, very favorable here. So the humid climate and everything, procurement of labor, investment of capital, and all of the required factors for Ahmedabad was also very, very favorable, right? So proximity to cotton growing area, raw material, availability of raw material. All right, then ideal climate, that humid climate that you need for the spinning and weaving that I mentioned earlier, right? So ideal climate, then availability of labor as well as capital, so skilled and semi-skilled labors. Skilled and semi-skilled laborers, when developed road and railway networks. So this is mainly for transport. Okay, then near the Mumbai port again. So Mumbai port is important because it is a very, very crucial port, involved in the import and export of different materials. So import of raw material, export of finished products, or sometimes export of finished products, or import of finished products and export of some of the raw materials as well. Okay, and availability of land and flat terrain for mills. So basically all those factors that we have already studied about, these factors will be coming up again and again and again. And whenever you encounter that a particular city in a particular area is a leading producer of cotton or food processing industry or some other industry, right? So you have to be very, very careful about this, that the reason why that particular city in a particular area was chosen, because of all those factors, listing factors that we have already studied. Because when all of these factors are favorable and they are appearing in a particular city where all these factors are available, then only a flourishing industrial setup would develop there. Okay. And finally, we are having Osaka in Japan. Osaka is also known as the Manchester of Japan. It's also involved in the textile industry. It is the leading textile center of Japan, where the raw material is being imported. So raw material, cotton, is getting imported from Egypt. It is getting also imported from India, from USA, also from China. Also remember the leading producers of textile industry, India, USA, China. They are the leading producers. All right. So Osaka is importing cotton from Egypt, India, China, USA. Okay, and now okay, since Japan is also involved in a lot of modernization, right? So now textile industry is there, of course, but along with these textile industries, other important industries involved, such as iron and steel industries and other petrochemical industries, they are emerging up as the leading ones. All right. So again, why was Osaka chosen? Availability of land factor that we've already learned before. Suitable climate for spinning and weaving, that particular humid climate that you need. Proximity to river Yodo. Again, so river not just supplies an industry with water that will be required for that particular processing in that industry, but it also aids in transporting, right? So the transport system. Then labor is available and location of ports, furthering the facility of the import and export system. Okay. Then finally a few questions, and then we will come towards the end of this chapter. So what is meant by the term industry? So till now you must have understood that industry has a lot of processing of raw material is going on. Okay. So in an industrial area, there is a lot of processing of raw materials. And other factors that must be coming up in your mind is that an industrial activity refers to economic activities, right? It refers to economic activities where the concerned production, whatever production is happening, it is either related to production of goods, okay, or extraction of minerals, or provision of certain services. If you remember the first slide, so it refers to activities, economic activities where certain goods are being manufactured, okay, or where certain minerals are getting extracted, such as the iron and steel industry, goods such as the food industry, the textile industry, and some services are being provided. Okay, so for example, the tourism industry, that is it is an industry, a certain system is being built up there, where is a certain input, processing, output, and that industry, what is it doing? It is actually providing you with certain services that you may need when you're traveling abroad. Okay. Then, what are the main factors that influence the location of an industry? So, if you may remember that important slide, the factors that influence, of course, first would be the raw material. All right. Then you need capital. Okay, because capital is going to determine what kind of land you're choosing, what kind of power supply you have. Okay. Then the kind of labor that you will be incorporating. Okay, so land, water, power. Okay, so all of these area, they are actually involved, in determining that where you will be processing and what do you need for processing. Then after or once the processing has happened, then what other factors you need to keep in mind? You need to keep in mind transport. Okay, that finally how the processed part is will be transported for export, or if you don't have the raw material, then in that case how you will be transporting or importing raw materials from various areas. And finally, in the case of export, where are the possible target areas or target markets from where you will be gaining an output, gaining a profit. All right, so these are the factors that influence the location of an industry. Then, which industry is often referred to as the backbone of modern industry, and why? If you may remember, this is the iron and steel industry. Okay, and it is mainly steel that is referred to as the backbone, because steel is very, very versatile in its use. It has different usage such as it is involved in weight. It is involved in the manufacturing of vehicles. It is involved in the manufacturing of vehicles such as ships, such as trains, such as cars. Then it is involved in manufacturing of certain machineries, all right, such as that oil drilling machine that I talked to you about. Then very basic stuff also, such as safety pins, okay, etc. And why is steel used? Because steel can be molded into different shapes. It can be molded, beaten, drawn, okay, and it can also be used as a, when mixed with different alloy, the tensile strength increases, and then it can also be used as pipes where important oil pipes are being channeled and located, constructed. All right, and again, why is steel being used? Because of its different usages, and also because steel is not just, you can see, a final product of the iron and steel industrial area or the mineral industrial area, but rather steel is being used as a raw material in various other industries. So all of these items that I have listed, these are again, there are specific industries located for the manufacture of these particular items, and steel, or in fact iron also, is being used as a raw material in these respective areas. That is why it is referred to as the backbone of modern industry. Then why did the cotton textile industry rapidly expand in Mumbai? First of all, it is owing to the moist climate, right? The moist or the humid climate that makes it possible for the spinning and weaving processes that are required for the manufacture of cotton textile products. All right. Then what else? Seaports. Seaports are located, of course, very, very close, and they are located in Mumbai in very proximity towards these industrial areas that render the import and export process possible. Okay, so import and export process is happening hassle-free. Okay, then what? Transport, we have talked about. Transport is via the seaport. Then the availability of raw material. So the availability of raw material, it's definitely located towards the cotton mills, where those cotton balls of cotton are getting then transported towards the cotton industrial areas. So availability of raw material, then other factors such as labor. So cheap labor is getting procured. A lot of capital is getting invested in this. So that is why cotton textile industry, when it was installed in Mumbai, it flourished because all of these favorable factors that made Mumbai one of the leading producers of cotton textile industry, not just a leading importer but also a leading exporter. Okay. Then distinguish between the following: agro-based, mineral-based industry, public sector, and joint sector industry. So agro-based and mineral-based industries, these industries are depending upon the raw material. So in agro-based, you are having agricultural-based raw materials. So you are having raw materials that are derivatives of plants, raw materials that are derivatives of animals. So the industries that are devoted in this area are food processing industries, okay, and one of the famous industry that we just discussed about, textile industries, okay. I'm sorry, textile industries. Then mineral based industry. So mineral based industry refers to all the processing of all those, you can say, metals, non-metals, minerals, okay, such as what? Such as iron, such as coal, such as steel, such as other metals like nickels, the amalgamation of various alloys. Okay, so all of this is happening in the mineral based industry, where from the ore, from the particular rock, or from that particular, you can say, area, land, okay, these important minerals, metals, non-metals, alloys, metalloids, non-metals, they're being extracted. Okay, then the second difference can be calculated, can be determined on the basis of another classification of industries that we had read about, public sector and joint sector. So based upon the ownership, public sector, where a state government or a central government, so whatever government is, owning a particular industrial setup, right, that is public sector. And joint sector, where where the government plus a certain group of individuals, they are coming together in a collaborated manner to own a particular industrial setup. All right. So with this question, we come towards the end of the chapter, and where we have discussed about so many important things, right? We have discussed about industries, the different kinds of industries based on different classifications, Okay, then we also talked about in a case of industrial mishap, then what are the important measures that you need to take in order to mitigate all those disaster factors. Okay, then factors leading to the setup of an industrial area, then distribution of various minerals, not just minerals but rather industrial areas where those particular raw materials are available and where they are being processed, where they are being channelized and finally exported, or if importing, then imported. Okay, then in the next part, the final part, I will be discussing a quick recapitulating of important points, a quick revision. All right, so thanks for joining me till here.